Respected chief guests and dignitaries on the dais and off the dais, I feel elated to introduce today's center of attraction for this interaction program. Our honorable chief guest, Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman is a woman of virtue and simplicity. Srimati Nirmala Sitharaman is serving as a Minister of Finance and Corporate Affairs of Government of India since 2019. It's a proud and a honor that Nirmala Sitharaman, proud daughter of Karnataka, representing Karnataka as a member of the Rajya Sabha, the upper house of the Indian Parliament since 2016. She previously represented Andhra Pradesh from 2016 to 2014 to 16 in Rajya Sabha. Nirmala Sitharaman previously served as the 28th Defence Minister from 2017 to 19, thereby becoming India's second woman Defence Minister and the second woman Finance Minister after Srimati Indira Gandhi, and the first ever full-time woman minister to hold each of those portfolios. Nirmala Sitharaman also served as a Minister of State in the Ministry of Finance and Minister of State in Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Minister of State for the Ministry of Commerce and Industry from May 2014 to September 2017. Nirmala Sitharaman was born in Madurai, Tamil Nadu. She had her schooling from Madras and Tiruchirappalli. She obtained a Bachelor of Arts degree in Economics at the Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, Tiruchirappalli in 1980. Then Master of Arts degree in Economics and MPhil in JNU, Delhi in 1984. She joined Bharatiya Janata Party in 2006 and became its national spokesperson in 2010. Nirmala ji is known for her intellectual and oratory skills on contemporary socio-economic, socio-political issues of the nation. Nirmala Sitharaman has presented annual budget of the nation. India has reached the mark of a $3.1 trillion economy under her successful leadership. As a youth, I'll always expect, I have a hope, shortly her leadership will reach $5 trillion economy soon. We proudly welcome you, Nirmala Sitharaman ji, for this event today. Now I request Dr. Ramesh, Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University of Health and Science, offer a bouquet to Nirmala Sitharaman ji to welcome the address, to welcome the gathering, and also to welcome her. Welcome you, ma'am, for this occasion.
I thank the organizers for having given me this opportunity to speak to you. Several years ago, I think, I had done this in 1 or 2, 3 places, and each time, because they are designed to be interactive sessions, I've gone back with a good lot of motivation, and I anytime prefer an interactive session rather than deliver a lecture and go away. So I thank the organizers for this time also making it an interactive session. So what do I want to say in a few words to begin with and then interact? I just want all of us to look at this year and look back at the last 4 years. That itself will tell you the story of India in the world and story of India even in matters which are domestic affairs. That will also tell the story of India, its states, and also therefore India and the role of Karnataka. So I've purposely put these 3 chapters before you. And why are the last 4 years important? I'm going to state everything that everybody knows. Why are they important? These were unusual years. Not any run-of-the-mill year for any country in the world. If they were unusual years only for India, we can always say, unusual. India has had several unusual times, war times, 3-4 wars, drought times, and particularly Karnataka gets hit very badly when droughts happen. So drought times and therefore unusual. Or there has been a health crisis, like sometimes in some cities in India, say about 20 years ago, also you had serious problem of public health like plague in some cities in India. No, none of this. The last few years have been very exceptional, very unusual, not just for India but for the world, because it started off with the COVID, 1920, 20, 21, and not till 22 could you say it has somewhat subsided. Even now there are traces of it. I'm not saying it's gone away completely. And that is the case for every country in the world. COVID-19 did not leave any even small island countries without affecting them somewhat. In some countries the impact has been huge. So, Indian economy suffers, and also every other economy around us suffers. Globally the economies suffer. When global economy suffers, the impact again, the spillover of that back again on our economy. So your own economy because of COVID, every other economy because of COVID, and because of that the impact again on Indian economy. So after that you get to somewhat trudgingly you come to 21, 22, let us say. Even from February of 22, you have a war happening in Europe. You may ask, so what? But two countries who had a big role in trade, particularly Ukraine for food grains and edible oils, and some military equipments and so on, and somewhat in pharmaceutical as well. And Russia, which gives fuel, which gives fertilizer, which also gives grains, which gives natural gas. So every one of these items in the global market came under severe stress. Sanctions happened. You cannot buy or sell from Russia happened. Ukraine was in no position to send its grown grains outside, and therefore the global grain market gets affected. So it may be a war happening in Europe, but it had global repercussions. The fuel price goes up. Many countries are living in food insecurity situation. And when they live in food insecurity situation, the global market for grains becomes stressed out. And its repercussions I don't need to say. So if the COVID pandemic has not gone away completely, war comes in, the global markets were essential, whether it is crude, whether it is edible oil, whether it's grains, whether it is fertilizer, everything which is critical for our economy is hit badly. And then whoever thought this war will stretch, whoever thought this war will be for years, not just months, and it is happening now. And with all this, because of the sanctions and because of the various global developments and the COVID, Western economies, which took a certain formula for dealing with the stressed economy situation, the stressed economy because of the COVID situation, They had a formula or a recipe with which they wanted to attend to their economies. And most of the Western developed economies adopted that method of dealing with the stress in their economy. And that method has now proven hurtful of their economies as an after effect. What was the formula? One feature of the formula was you print currency and distribute it to the people because people need money in their hands during the COVID stress times. People needed help, no doubt. But what kind of help, when, how much? So the methods that they adopted has resulted in huge cash in the economy. As a result, the inflation had shot up the roof. Some countries have seen inflation which they have not seen for 40 years, 30 years. Double digit, where countries were living in 1 or 2% inflation, their tolerance band is also within 2%. Ours is up to 6. They've gone to 30, 40 year high in inflation. And today, if you want to bring down inflation, you also have to suck in some of the excess currency which is floating into the economy. That which you brought into the economy during COVID. The sucking in is not happening as fast as it should happen. Interest rates are now being increased by their central banks. So doing business is getting expensive, taking a loan from a bank is becoming expensive. For a long time the rate of interest was kept low, was low there. In fact, it's become a phrase that people commonly use. Interest rates have been low for long. Now their problem is inflation is remaining high for long. They are not able to control it. As a result, those economies are in a state of flux. They are probably, some of them, going to enter into a recessionary phase. Recession will cause a lot of, again, spillover all over the world. Their demands will come down. Money becomes expensive for them, so for buying and selling, their demand will have to be lower. If their demand comes down, our exports get affected. So your exports suffer, our exports suffer. Because we depend on a lot of exports going to these developed countries. In all this, India helped its poor, kept them, at least given some grains and protein, with some dal given, some money given. You can always give more, but some money given for emergency expenses for particularly women, senior citizens and so on. And after that, when the economic recovery was happening, the policy support and the way in which MSMEs particularly have been given step by step, so many different hand-holding. Again, there can be more done, but some things were done, has made Indian economy face the challenge. People were brave, they helped one another. I will never fail saying that. They helped them even when doctors and others were struggling in the hospital. Outside, people were helping with medicines and food for even people who were kept in quarantine. So with all that, with the MSMEs being given some kind of help, banks also being careful about ensuring assistance reached the Prime Minister has monitored vaccination, monitored production of vaccination, monitored how vaccines are being dispensed, taken to doorsteps, and in a phased manner giving people who are exposed to patients, frontline workers, doctors, and then senior citizens, people with comorbidity, and then further to 18 years and above. And then again within that, students who were desperately wanting to go abroad to study, who had paid fees, but colleges were not opening up. When they have to go, we have to give them priority. The vaccination was being monitored, and that in consultation and discussion with state governments. It's not as if the Prime Minister thought, and he did it every time. The consultations with the state governments kept happening. And in this phase, the opportunity that the Indian economy gives, even though there are challenges, not to lose heart but carry on with the reforms which are so required in the economy. Reforms to make lives better. Reforms to make system transparent. Reforms to make businesses do it easily rather than go 10,000 places and give their forms and say, please give me the permit, please give me the license, give me this. And where possible to make it as deemed as given if it exceeds a certain time. You wait for 15 days, 30 days, as is the case in each of them. And if you don't get it in time, we even made this provision, it can be taken as given. So the reforms opportunity was not lost because everybody was tied up in the COVID, everybody was tied up in the revival of the economy, everybody was tied up in making sure that they don't get hit by the COVID or by the war. And again in this, even when the fertilizer prices, I told you how the fertilizer things have become stressed because of the war. And when the prices hit 7-8 times more than what we give in India, the market, we still imported them at a 7-8 times higher price, but never passed that burden on the farmers. The farmers were paying the same amount as before, but imported fertilizers are very, very high. The total quantity that we import is very high. And every import without restriction was made and given to the farmers, without they having to bear the burden of increasing costs. So, Indian economy is fast growing. Our entrepreneurs showed their courage and their enterprise. They were able to pull through the crisis. All credit to our 1.4 billion population. Really. The government may support, the government may come forward. We have a very visionary Prime Minister who monitors, as I said, vaccine onwards to the price of imported commodities and get the fuel from where you should. And where you should means where you can afford to bring it from. Initially, everybody was asking, are you importing from Russia? Are you getting it from Russia? Because it's giving a concession. For me, the question is, we need to get it at an affordable price. My search will be constantly on to see where I can get it at an affordable price for India. And we explained our position. Not that we are answerable as a sovereign country to anybody else except our people. We are answerable to our people. So we made sure that India will get the quantities of fuel required at the affordable price. So I am just giving all this only to say, India today is being observed by the global community for the way in which it steered its own way through the pandemic, through the war and war-related price spillovers. Inflation in India is, if I can say in a very generic sweeping fashion, inflation in India is today largely imported because of the price of fuel, price of fertilizer. So you're bringing it all in. Your own cost for inflation could be supply side. Tomatoes are not adequately available in the market, or the production of a particular crop is damaged because of flood or unseasonal rains. That inflation, India always is aware of. Every government will fight that. We are doing that as well. But today, the pressures on inflation in India are largely because of the imported hikes in prices. So in all this, if Prime Minister Modi has ensured that the people of India will not be put to suffering, and where we can help, extent to which we can help, we will definitely do. In an unusual situation like COVID, yes, there will always be the voice which will say, no, this wasn't all right, it could have been different. Agreed. But was there a template before any one of us to say a certain situation because of a global pandemic you will handle like this? No. Every day with consultation we were taking it forward. And therefore, without making my opening remarks too large or too time consuming, India and as Indians, we can be extremely proud that our people have all come together and showed their entrepreneurship, showed their hand-holding one another. And as a result, we are able to come up to this level. And in this, as I said at the very beginning, the three chapters which I am presenting before you are the global recognition of India, giving India the high table, a place at the high table for all these achievements and more. And then within India, the way in which things are being handled, and that in consultation with states. I can tell you about the 2020 year when GST collections had really suffered. That year, by borrowing back to back, in the GST Council sitting and deciding with the ministers from the states, we had given timely borrowed money, but timely release happened on predictable dates. No state was left without timely dispersal of revenue, of money which was borrowed. So the consultation with the states helped. And after that as well, when the revenue grew, we paid them in advance. Sometimes what I have to pay 2 months afterwards, I paid earlier. I gave 2 installments at one time, only because states are at the ground, meaning that's where action lies. They are at the coal face, as they say. They need money in their hands, they need to spend. So there was no center is sitting over money, no such a situation. The moment it came, and if it came adequately, we pushed it to the states to say you take 2 months' work even within 1 month. So the consultation with the states and recognizing the federal nature of our country has been 100% followed by Prime Minister Modi. He's been a chief minister himself, so he knows what it is to recognize the role of states and give them their due in.
But I hope I've done due justice. I will begin. Ma'am, you spoke very eloquently about the difficulties that the global economy is facing, as well as what India did right through this entire process. One of the popular questions that we received in this questionnaire was, in fact, by almost 75 people, about INR as a global currency. Government and the central bank have taken several steps to internationalize the rupee and push rupee invoicing in international trade. We have more than 18 countries as of March 2023 who have agreed to trade in the rupee.
First, let me start by saying the fact that we recognize this issue, and the recognition is at all our levels, and not just in the hands of the government, shows that the Indian rupee has withstood the test of the times, and despite, say, the last few years where people kept asking questions saying, oh, rupee is weakening. Weakening against the dollar because of the dollar's own issues. But as it is, rupee has kept itself steady. So that's the first feature that all of us recognize when we're talking about rupee as a global currency. And then, given today the situation where countries, some of them in different parts of the world, I'm not saying they are concentrated in one country or one continent or in one region. Several countries think it's possible to trade with countries like India, which are in a position to export manufactured goods or agricultural produce or even services. And India is well known for its frugal cost of production. In fact, I take the frugal cost to the extreme example that we have, that we could even build the Mangalyaan at the cost of a Hollywood film. So, frugal cost is a feature in India, be it for agricultural produce, be it for manufacturing goods, be it for software related produces, services. So the general image of India producing even our vaccines, even our generic medicines, are very affordable. And therefore countries which want to trade see that getting things from India have quality, but yet they are very affordable. And therefore they are looking at ways in which they can increase this trade. And also, because of the global debt situation, many countries, some of whom are middle-income countries, are under terrible distress because of debt. And if in that situation too they want to trade, it is possible to trade with the Indian currency. That is why there is now a good appreciation of this point, and the number of countries which are coming in to say we'll trade in Indian rupees is increasing, and you find it's also a question of trust. The trust in the currency, the trust in a stable government, the trust in India's democracy. There are several countries with whom bilateral or in their currency trade has not yet come into force or even initiated yet. So there are several factors. It's not just the strength or the stability of the rupee, but it's also the strength and the stability of the government, trust in the Indian economy because your macroeconomic fundamentals are strong. And therefore countries choose to go through this route, and I'm glad the Reserve Bank of India, working together with the Ministry of Finance, has established a framework through which it can happen. Simultaneously, I would want this august audience to recognize the fact that our payment systems are also now becoming interoperable in the sense Singapore and India have come into this understanding, and they've established a system which is going to be real time. So our GIFT City, which is our special economic zone, if I may use that word, for financial matters, is also working closely with them. So your payment systems in real time can work simultaneously. Their system talks to your system, your system.
Another very, very popular question, and you'd be very delighted to hear of this, is on financial literacy. Financial literacy has been a big question from the angle of women and young children. The government has pushed through many different programs.
We started working on with schools through the boards, Reserve Bank of India, Ministry of Finance. In fact, during the 75 years of India's independence, Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, I remember coming out with comic books, also digital comic strips, and also board games for children to play, which will build on their financial literacy. The National Securities Depository also conducts online classes, and they are not classes which run at a particular time. They are courses available for each one of us to go avail of it whenever it is convenient for us. It is there for us to tap, and many people are taking on those courses. They also have a women-specific component in it. But I will take courage to say this, that women who have asked you this question should not shy away from keeping a separate account for themselves. Should not shy away. Joint accounts are good. It's for the family's welfare. But women are never going to be, and I'm not making a virtue out of it, but it is a virtue inherent in women. You're not going to have a separate account to say, I steal away the family's wealth and I put into my own account and I live with it. No. When you have your own account, even in a family setup, even if you being a part of a family assumes that you will share everything, that account is something where you can take the best decisions on how to utilize it. And I would still encourage small or big amount, women should have their own accounts. We are not going to be less mobile by keeping a separate account and not a joint account with the husbands or anybody else. I strongly advocate it. Small or big account, women should have their own. But the data and the developments of 2020, 2021 tell me that the retail participation in the stock markets, that equal opportunity, if I can say, but an advantage which was not there earlier, but by bringing the parity, it has given the bank the advantage. Giving them the parity has given them a little advantage. That fixed deposits in banks today are back again, like once upon a time, a very meaningful income proposition.
Financial influencers. Your thoughts on whether that needs to be regulated?
At this stage, I'm not having any proposal before me for regulating them. But yes, a word of caution is important. If there are 3 or 4 people giving us very objective good advice, there are 7 others out of 10 who are probably driven by some other considerations. There are also apps which are coming out and reaching out to people saying, we can do this, we can do that, your money will fetch you this much. Many of whom are Ponzi, the apps on which we are working with the ministry concerned, the MeitY ministry and with the Reserve Bank, and clamping down on them like never before, so that we don't get those Ponzi apps taking away hard-earned money. So, social influencers, influencers are all out there, but a very strong sense of caution is required.
Economy questions that came in was on expanding the tax base. The middle class, middle income groups in India often wait for the budget to see the changes in tax slabs. Our questions ask this one from a different perspective. Do we see India expanding its tax base, particularly to account for agricultural income beyond a particular threshold?
Since you so specifically asked on agriculture, say there's nothing before me on specifically agriculture. But on widening the tax base, a lot of measures have been taken, as you know. We're not increasing taxation, but we are bringing it down. We are also giving a parallel scheme wherein there are no exemptions, rate is very low, and even that, after tabling the budget, we've still tweaked it so that people who cross the 7 lakh threshold do not get to pay immediately when they earn 1 rupee or 10 rupee more than 7 lakh. We have even graded it downwards so that even more than 7 lakhs, you still don't pay more than what you actually earn. So those changes have been brought in to encourage people to come into the tax fold. And truly, for a salaried person, tax gets cut off. But for some others, when they spend huge amounts on, let us say, on a foreign travel or on a huge expenditure on, I don't know, buying a car or buying a property or something, we do have tax deduction. The tax deduction is not with an intent of putting an additional burden. It is more with an intent of asking them to say, are you a taxpayer? Then please reconcile this and don't have to, you can adjust this, you don't have to treat this as a additional tax only. But if you're not a taxpayer, would you start filing your returns and then adjust this amount? But if you're not a taxpayer, but because you spent this, we've deducted that 0.1 or 0.2 or whatever, 0.05 or depending on different classifications, we do ask them to pay. And irony is, I can understand that pain. I fully appreciate that thought. I understand the pain that is in the minds of the salaried class. But our actions will show that we are not just hitting any one particular group. In fact, no tax has been raised under Prime Minister Modi.
GST collection is the highest FDI collector amongst all states, is ranked 1 in Niti Aayog's Innovation Index, which comes as no surprise, contributes a GDP of 8.7% and has an increased tax collection this year. If you were auditing Karnataka's fiscal management, what would be your inputs as well as what would you keep as is?
I will not bring any freebies. The promises given by some, even if, I'm sure most of you can do a back of the envelope calculation. It will be a third of the state's budget. Instead of giving freebies, which is more on the principle of entitlement, they are poor, they have to be given free electricity. They are poor, therefore they have to be given monthly this much amount. They are poor, therefore I will give them this. Will have to be well within your budget. Nobody is against. We also give free food grains. We continue to give as per the Food Security Act even now. But these are part of the budget. And therefore, you know to what extent you can accommodate that and keep money for development activities as well. But if it is going to take away huge amount of your budget, will there be money to develop the state? Or is that going to depend on other considerations which are not transparent? And therefore my suggestion and the answer that I would like to give your question is, the state will have to give all kinds of provisions and make expenditure for empowering people, not on the basis of entitlement. Give them everything that they need for a basic, decent living. Road, electricity, house, toilets, minimum hospital care. Then they are the best judge as to where they want to put their money for taking their children to education, higher education, and there are scholarships even there as well. They can decide their lives the way they want. So make sure you get affordable.
The courage that you have, ma'am, to say this without mincing your words. We're very proud that you represent Karnataka and these are the views that you put forth on the national stage. Just as the previous question, one of the big narratives that goes around in Karnataka is on tax devolution. The criticism is that the 15th Finance Commission has not been fair to Karnataka. Two other special call-outs that probably gets missed in this discussion. For example, in the budget this time, the revised estimates have given a 5,000 crore increase from the union tax collection. And beyond that, you have allocated for special projects such as the Upper Bhadra project. These are not things that get mentioned. However, the 15th Finance Commission's report is often criticized. How would you handle this criticism?
The specific reference to the 15th Finance Commission's recommendation is to a revenue deficit grant, which over and above the regular revenue deficit grant which every revenue deficit state gets. Revenue deficit states get a revenue deficit grant. Several states come in that category. Over and above that, the 15th Finance Commission had mentioned another revenue deficit grant which was applicable only to 3 states, Karnataka, Telangana and Mizoram, if I know right. One of the northeast states, Mizoram and all. The mandate of the Finance Commission is to recognize the revenue deficits in states and provide for a grant, which they have already, which we have accepted already. The Finance Commission went over and above that and mentioned a revenue deficit grant. After that, only to these 3 states, which was not part of any Finance Commission's terms of reference. So that was completely out of the box. So if there are several states for which revenue deficit grants were given and accepted and getting paid.
And probably this is the reading up and the learning that we have to do when these questions come to us as well. Similar to this issue, another issue has possibly lost a lot of nuance in common discussions in parliament, and that is the Amul Nandini controversy. I leave it open to you to share your thoughts on this.
In India's scheme of things, every state has its own milk cooperatives. Karnataka's Nandini, whoever doesn't recognize it. Even now as I've come, I've had Nandini's milk, I've had Nandini's curd, Nandini's peda, just wait. But of course, when I travel to Delhi, when I live in Delhi, I will buy Amul. I represent Karnataka. In Delhi, in the nearest outlet, if Nandini is not available, I think I'm mentally still not like a sannyasi to say, no, Nandini not available, even in Delhi, I will not drink milk. I still buy Amul. That's not being against Karnataka. But it is required that we support Karnataka's milk farmers. I call them that way because they have 1 cow, 2 cows. They take the milk, supply to the Karnataka Milk Federation. Chilling units are kept, and from there they are taken to, pasteurized and then get pouched into containers. Every step will have to be taken, and it has been taken. I'm not saying by one government. Of course, the credit goes to, I think, Sri Yediyurappa ji's government for having given the first time, for the first time given an additional amount for the milk being supplied by farmers. If it was being procured at 5 rupees per litre, he gave 2 more rupees and said, take 7 rupees. The government gave the farmer 2 more rupees. I think it was done sometime in 2002 or something like that. The credit goes to him. And after that, subsequent governments, I think Congress and JDS also gave 2 rupees, so increase, 2 became 3, 3 became 4, 4 became whatever. Again, the current government increased it to 5 rupees, I think, the 5. If it is now being procured at 10 rupees per litre, 5 is being given by the government. The BJP government added this time and therefore it's reached 5 or whatever. So support to milk giving farmers, animal husbandry people will have to continue, and not just this per litre cost, something else may also get added. The farmers and animal husbandry people have also been given by the central government many other facilities like veterinary surgeon being available within a certain block funded by the central government. So he will be on call anytime this farmer, even with a single cow, feels his cow is suffering, he needs help, the vet will come, being paid by the central government. So the farmer will be given the protection of the veterinary surgeon coming. There are many other such steps. In fact, even somebody who just keeps a cow, who is not a farmer of any kind, gets a Kisan credit card under Prime Minister Modi. Even if he is just keeping a cow and he is not doing agriculture plus dairy, he still gets a Kisan credit card, which means he is eligible to go to the banks and get some money and have better facility in getting his milk, taken every day and then supplied and all that. So for the overall benefit of animal husbandry people, dairy people, so the central government is taking several steps. State government, as I said, is also taking steps. Strengthening Nandini and strengthening the dairy farmers of Karnataka has never been a question. It will happen, it will continue to happen, it is happening now. And Nandini goes places. It is available in Kerala, it is available in Tamil Nadu, it is available in Telangana, it is available in Andhra, just like others are also available in Karnataka. Good competition, I would say. And strictly speaking, there are times there are my relatives who come from Tamil Nadu bring to Delhi Arvind's Palkova. And I take Nandini's Pedas. There are times when I serve it at home in Delhi, they say, which is better, this or this? Both are so good.
More of a, not as much of a love for Kannada and Karnataka, but a hate towards Gujarat and nationalism. That is what we are unfortunately seeing and what we see in every election season. Very quickly, ma'am, before I hand it back to you for closing comments, there was a lot of interest on digital currency, on e-rupee, as well as how we plan to regulate crypto. You mentioned in your recent travels abroad that a global consensus on crypto for regulation is necessary before India makes any move on that. Could you talk to us a little bit about that?
That's true. The G20, of which India is currently holding the presidency, it was India's proposal and it is being taken on board. I'm glad to say the G20 has kept it in its agenda for this year. The IMF has given a paper on cryptocurrency and its the way it can affect macroeconomic stability. The FSB is the Financial Stability Board, which is a part of the G20. It was set up by the G20. Even they have agreed to give a report that will also focus on the financial stability. And their report and the IMF's report are going to be discussed in July when again the first finance ministers and central bank governors will meet under the G20. And post that in September, there will be a summit of prime ministers and presidents of the G20 nations that will be held in India. The underlying principle is, because digital currencies are so obviously, naturally, and of course, they are completely digitalized and technology driven. The technology which is very distributed and sometimes identity is very difficult to be established, but which has potential.
Abilities. And while there were many countries where that percentage, the probability of recession was high, India had a 0% probability of recession in 2023. Might I note that, as ma'am rightly mentioned, this was a time when a lot of foreign-based experts gave the contrary advice. You stood firm, you stood tall through all of it. And today we are seeing the reap of the benefits, where entrepreneurs in Bangalore are telling foreign graduates to come back to India and work here because this is the destination to be at. Ma'am, you are the first woman finance minister of India. You led us through this difficult time. What has been your toughest challenge so far as finance minister? And please speak to all of the young women in the audience and beyond who hope to be contributing to India's economy and policy.
This is a difficult thing to answer because the matter of fact answers I give, particularly because you said for the women, young women, it look as, oh my God, she's given an answer which is patriarchy driven. No, I'm giving a matter of fact answer. It is possible when you have a good visionary leader whose willpower is strong, who the leader today, all of you, I think each one of you are more familiar than I would want to describe him here. Visionary, politically committed for India, India's strength, has great leadership qualities, understands the importance of working together with the team of states. He's been a chief minister himself. And sits through with you to understand the issue.
Thank you for your questions. Thank you for your presence. Thank you for allowing this program to happen in this manner. I would like to call out to our friends in the media, to all of the staff of the RD Delhi College, to my fellow volunteers.
Requested, give the concluding remarks. So I did begin by saying there are three different aspects through which I would want you all to look at Indian economy, for its performance, for taking states along, for the way in which states and their requirements are being attended to, the fact that for Karnataka, the Akkabhadra, then there's this Krishna. There are irrigation projects which are very important for North Karnataka, all of which have been funded. Infrastructure in Karnataka has taken a top priority. For instance, the outer ring rail roads and also the rail which is going to come to connect and give better connectivity for Bengaluru city. The way in which the new terminal has been built, it is now so beautifully recognized by everybody that it is so green. And it is one of the best airports in the world. And the proud, I feel like every citizen here, the beautiful, wonderful stature with which that statue of Sri Kempe Gowda is kept at the airport. I mean, majesty, the majesty with which that statue is made and kept at the right place, giving recognition to Karnataka's asmita, and the fact that Karnataka's different parts, different communities have all been given a place. The way in which I know the Chief Minister has taken issues forward, making sure that communities which so desperately require representation have been given the representation. And also the way in which he is making sure that development is not confined only to Bengaluru, that it should be taken to different parts of the state. I think, as a concluding statement, and because we are at a time of elections, I've not come here for political campaign. But the fact is, Karnataka's all-round growth was given a priority always. Whether it is agriculture's first budget exclusively for agriculture was given by Sri Yediyurappa ji. First ever agriculture budget in the country exclusively for agriculture was given by Yediyurappa. You can never forget that. Many states took inspiration from it, and they made also budgets exclusively for agriculture. To stand out as a developed state, industry, investment, services, pharmaceutical, that Mitra, which is a mega industrial textile park which is coming in North Karnataka, in Kalaburgi, I think. The weaving community of Karnataka being given priority because of that huge big investment which is coming in. And in fact, in a very smallish way, but it has now become a big impact decision to have a toy making cluster, first in the entire country, in Karnataka. I have grown up with Chennapatna toys. But today you have a cluster which is also looking at, in a big way, doing also export of toys. India is now exporting toys that emanates from Karnataka. The Bengaluru port, the way in which the entire coastal district's developments, all-round development of Karnataka is happening. And I would strongly say for all of us to be honest enough to look at the work which has happened in the last 9 years of Prime Minister Modi. And the pride of place that Kannada language receives even today. There are moments when I say I'm terribly lagging at learning it. As an adult, many people are capable, and I concede I'm less capable in quickly learning it, although I fully understand it. And I have great fascination for Tulu, aside from Kannada. So, there is so much happening in the country, so much happening for Karnataka, in Karnataka. The way in which pharmaceutical sector, the way in which today's interest globally for coming into Karnataka. I'm so proud and happy to say this, and I will say it. The first ever finance ministers central bank meet under a G20 in India.
Sir. Don't.